out there. This is Ron
And I'm Dave.
and we're basically the show and tell prospectors. Is that what we're saying?
Yes,
We're
yes,
always
the show and tell
for-
prospectors.
We're looking for something, right? What are we looking for, Dave?
Anything unique, things that you can't find at Walmart. Probably not something what you would consider new.
Okay, Dave, you're not one of those deplorables.
Huh?
You're not one of those deplorables shopping at Walmart.
No, I go to the thrift shop.
I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself.
I'm more like Macklemore. I'm all about the thrift shop.
The thrift shop.
You find so much more interesting things there.
What you're doing is you're basically finding treasures, aren't you?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
I got a couple of treasures that I got from you a couple of weeks ago, I guess it was. So
Right.
what do you actually look for, and how do you define a treasure? That's what I'm interested in.
For me, most of the time it's not something commonplace.
I'll say
Um,
that.
So I look for the uncommon, and then I look for things that are collectible, and items that might be a high value target.
Yeah, I would say high value or of high interest. Maybe something of a
Yes,
historical
Yes.
perspective, maybe? Would you
yes.
say? Yeah.
I have some pieces that I treasure, but probably aren't necessarily worth a lot of money. So
Same here.
For me, the definition of treasure can be the idea behind the object, and something intangible rather than something that's tangible.
Well, David, my brother thinks you're legendary. I think you're a legend in your own mind.
No,
My brother and me too. We're just amazed at when you find something, the level and detail to which you go in researching its background. And it's pretty phenomenal. I mean, it could be an autographed baseball, it could be a painting, it could be a book. The things that you prospect for are really unique. It's not your normal finds.
I love hunting for them, and I love doing the research too. It's a challenge, kind of a puzzle, if you may,
I
of
agree.
finding out the history or background of these different items, and
Yeah.
that's an adventure in its own right, and that's something that I really enjoy is an adventure.
Yeah,
So
I
that's
think
kind of
that's
what
one
this
of
is
our
for.
it's
Yeah.
one of our mottos, isn't it? It's really the hunt that's important.
Yes.
It's the
Yes.
fact that we find something is okay, but it's the thrill of the hunt. At least,
Right. If it were, if we came across something every day, every minute of the day, then it would be called what? Finding or shopping.
yeah, like the Walmart thing, right? You go shop
Right.
at
The
Walmart again.
Walmart thing. You know
No,
what you're looking for. You go in and you find it and you buy it.
right. You're here though. What you do so
Right.
very well is find those unique arcane things that are of high interest. Some of them are quite valuable, you find, and some of them are nominally valued. And
Right.
as an example, some things that we're going to be sharing with our viewing audience this evening. Well, it could be today, it could be tomorrow, it could be whenever you're watching this video. But we've got some interesting things we're going to share that David found and that I found in just a bit.
Yes.
So, recapping, based on your definition, a treasure is anything of high interest or of high value.
Yeah. Well, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, so to speak, and so is treasure, right?
So,
A treasure can be defined by each person based on their own experiences.
so how did you get started in all this? That's what I'd like to know. I mean, the very fact that part of the name of our channel is show and tell prospecting, isn't prospecting in your family history?
Yes, absolutely. Ron, as I grew up, my dad had taken classes in geology, and that prompted him to want to prospect for gold. I think in some ways that's everybody's dream of being able to strike it rich. And that's great. It is wonderful. It's good to have a dream and to work towards it. So
It's hard work,
that
though.
was his.
Yes.
Yes, and so he would. My dad had 8 kids, right? My parents had 8 kids, and he would take us up into the mountains, Cascade Mountains, and prospect for gold.
Now, don't give those locations away too quickly here.
Oh, that's a long chain of mountains. It's not specific.
Okay.
But
I could just see the 49ers going out there again, right?
Right. Well, there's different places where you're going to be more likely to find gold than other places, but there is gold in a lot of areas. So, getting back to the prospecting, he had it didn't just stop with prospecting, but we actually filed claims and made markers. So it wasn't just out there kicking around rocks. We ran tape. We measured it off, marked it off, filed it. So this was real active claims, right? And in order to have claims, you also have to prove them. So right. it wasn't just an empty search. It was prospecting as it's meant to be.
And you had to work it so many months out of the year, I think, right?
Right. You have to make improvements on the claims. You have to work them. Otherwise, it kind of goes fallow like a field. And
somebody else can claim it, jump it, right?
Yes. Then somebody else it's open to others.
So not to confuse our audience, however, it's really interesting that you have this in your background in your family. Yeah. But how did that translate into the thrill of the hunt in kind of like an urban prospecting setting?
Well, when we moved away from the mountains, I found myself in a place where there aren't a lot of mountains, but I still had that desire to hunt, the thrill of the hunt that prospecting brings you. So it was kind of a translation of, so where I'm at, what can I do to pursue, have that same feeling? How do I translate prospecting for gold into a more urban setting? And that's how I came into it. I found that I could find treasures around me.
Yeah. So to put a point on it, your gold is your treasure, and it's not necessarily gold as in AG, or is that AU? It's AU, right? AU. But you literally have found gold ore prospecting out in an urban setting. And we're probably going to show that in a future episode. We can actually show that seam of gold through our microscopes and cameras here. Kind of interesting.
Yeah, and that was exciting in its own right. It was kind of secondhand. I don't know if the person that had it and found it originally even knew that the gold was in the ore.
Right. We have to look at it very closely, because some people are fooled by fool's gold, which is pyrite. And when I looked at the seam, it's not pyrite. Pyrite has a very detailed structure to it.
Right. Okay. And my dad gave me some clues in what to look for. And he always told me it's not brassy, it's warm and buttery.
It's kind of like the Jurassic Park quote, the movie. The guy is riding in the car with the kids, and they pick up these heavy binoculars, and the guy turns around and says, "Is it heavy?" They said, "Oh yeah." He goes, "Well, it's expensive. Put it down." And that piece of ore that you have is heavy. I don't know what else is in it, but there's a lot of metal content, whether it's
Yes.
silver and gold or something else.
Yes.
It's quite beefy.
Could be silver, gold, lead,
Yeah,
possibly platinum,
yeah.
for that matter.
Well, we're not gonna show it tonight. We're trying to
Right.
keep these to 15, 20 minutes, and we're already well into the episode. We do have some things to show today. And again, just to let the audience know, David prospects, I prospect, and sometimes we compare notes. And more often than not, I buy things from David. And sometimes he gives me things that he knows that I'm looking for. And I think today's sampling is a mixture of something that I found and something that he found that I have now in my collection. And the operative word here is it's in my book collection, my pamphlet collection. And these three items are from 1950 and 51 and 53, I believe. So what I'm going to do, David, is I'm going to switch over to, I believe I found this one at an estate sale. And sometimes I get so many things on my desk, the pedigree of those things get lost in the mix. But let me change my camera.
Right.
Maybe you can talk about this for a bit. So I'm going to change to the tripod. Can you see it?
Yes. Yes. Prospecting for uranium.
What does that bring to mind?
It brings to mind the early years prior to the Cold War era.
Yeah.
So there was a run up. People have actually prospected for uranium for a long time, and they still do. And uranium is actually very prolific in the world, much more than a lot of people would think.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned about it though. I mean, it certainly is radioactive, and not knowing the potency of the ore, somebody could do themselves some damage if they're not careful. If you're out prospecting for quote uranium just as a collectible, you got to be careful. You need a Geiger counter.
Right. That would always be a smart thing if you're looking for uranium to have.
You're only supposed to get so many rims of radiation a day or per hour, and
right.
Going in and picking up rocks in an area known for uranium ore might be hazardous to your health. And it's one of those things that it's not immediate, but it could cause some damage to your DNA, that sort of thing, cancer and so forth, or it could actually burn you pretty badly.
Right. Absolutely. You just don't know. There is another, I believe that uranium is also associated with oil. Somehow, I don't know the details myself, so I couldn't really speak to that in more detail. But I vaguely remember that there was something about oil prospectors and uranium prospecting kind of occurring hand in hand.
It's kind of interesting when I'm looking at this. United States Atomic Energy Commission, that was shortly after that commission was stood up. And it was stood up because of the nuclear research for the bomb. And of course, our response to the threat that the Soviet Union was bringing in their research and development of the bomb. But it was put out by the United States Atomic Energy Commission and the United States Geological Survey in 1951. I believe that's a revision too.
Ron, do you recall when the atomic bombs were dropped?
Hiroshima had to be in the late 44, something like that, 45.
Right. So at the end of the war was in 45, right?
Yeah, and I've got to say, I know it stopped the war, and in some sad way, it probably saved lives. But the fact that many millions of civilians were killed or maimed or harmed, to me, it was a tragedy that the bomb.
It is. Any war any killing is a tragedy.
Yeah.
And that certainly was on a grand scale.
Yeah. That brings to mind what Oppenheimer said when, of course, many view him as the father of the nuclear bomb. Didn't he say something like, "I am become death," when they exploded the first atomic bomb? I think that's a quote that is quoted often and attributed to him.
Might be. Death. Yeah, I'm not familiar.
It's a little scary, but since we're talking about the atomic bomb, that brings us to the thing that you gave me this past week.
Yes, I love some of this old ephemera, the old literature.
Yeah, I'm going to hold it up.
Survival Under Atomic Attack, the official U.S. government booklet.
The official U.S. government booklet, and Survival Under Atomic Attack. You know what I remember? I remember in elementary school, first, second, third grade, we would have these drills in case of an atomic bomb or a tornado coming through, but more specifically, atomic bomb, especially during the Cuban Missile Crisis. They would tell us to get under our desk and cover our heads. Well, let me tell you, if a bomb was going to be dropped near you, in any proximity, if the bomb didn't get you, the wind would, the fallout would. I mean, nothing good. I mean, it's hundreds of miles, people that are affected, harmed, and killed.
Right. So, and that was with bombs from that era. They've certainly improved upon the ability to kill people since then.
Yeah, that's horrific to even think about. But the idea that that as a child, they knew that there was a distinct possibility of war erupting between the United States and Soviet Union. It would be transitioning from a Cold War to a hot war. And God forbid, I am so thankful that, they saw clear of that and it never happened. And what's fearful to me, of course, is with the stance that certain countries over in Europe are taking, and one country in particular attacking another country, that could get out of hand real easily. And I just hope and pray and think good thoughts for all those innocent people that are caught up in between that. But this particular pamphlet does go through and talk about the things that one should do. And look at this page here. You can survive. You can live through an atomic bomb raid, and you won't have to have a Geiger counter, protective clothing, or special training in order to do it. The secrets of survival are know the bomb's true dangers, know the steps you can take to escape them. Wow. I mean, just the idea that you would have to put out a booklet like that.
Right. Well, at that point in time, people really didn't have an idea of what an atomic bomb was, other than seeing the effects of it when the war ended, when it ended the war with Japan.
Later on, some of the film came out when they were testing it out in
True.
Yeah.
Later after the fact, and that would be scary when you because they had to keep it secret all the way up until they actually used it, and then they kind of set it on the world stage by doing this, and kind of I think put everybody else on notice.
Well, that's the whole point. It's the threat of action that prevents any action. And it's called MAD, right? MAD, mutually assured destruction. And that was what held the Soviet Union in abeyance. And that's what held the United States in abeyance, that should those things start flying back and forth, civilization as we know it would cease to exist.
Right. Some people would take steps to survive an event like that. Personally, I don't know exactly what kind of shape that might take, and whether this world, if we really saw the kind of nuclear war that is certainly capable of happening, if the world would be worth surviving in after such an event.
Yeah, all the supply chains would be collapsed. Uh, Electricity, water, all that would go away and would be thrown back into the Stone Ages if anybody did survive. Let's move on. We have another one. You gave me another one, which is kind of interesting. This is one of those, maybe we should be careful of showing these show and tells, right? Here's another.
Well, this is an interesting one that seems to kind of apply towards in today's.
Yeah, with the virus that's been out there, we can't really say it, or we'll get banned or something. But yeah, I mean, anything that can be used as a weapon grabs the authoritarian regime's attention. And there was some indication that perhaps it was being developed as a weapon. This is a pamphlet put out by the US government, again, what you should know about biological warfare. Now, if nuclear weapons are not scary enough, this is. I mean, you think about the plague that went through Europe. Some numbers indicate 30% of the population of Europe was eliminated by the Black Plague. And,
absolutely.
Millions upon millions of people in 1917, 18, 19, the Spanish flu took many of those lives. Not to mention the catastrophe of World War I. And now we're in a situation today, and thank God for science, because science, the quick reaction of the researchers, and those are truly the heroes, the doctors and scientists that developed the vaccines that really nipped it in the bud. And of course, there were people striving to do the right thing by practicing social distancing and all of that. But still, I mean, when you look at this, there is a threat out there. Here's the page that shows the government when it was produced. Federal Civil Defense Administration, right there at the top. Here is what you should know about biological warfare. And then, of course, biological attacks could be made by enemy forces or by secret agents. The attacks could be aimed at people, animals, or food crop, and so forth. You get the gist of that. I'm not sure we're going to get a lot of popularity in terms of views with YouTube positioning this video in places for wide dispersal, but it's one of the things that you found out there, urban prospecting, and it is part of our history.
Yes, and this was an estate sale find, and it's one of those items that what we talked about earlier isn't necessarily highly valuable.
No, as a matter of fact, I'm glad you mentioned that. Let's just go to share a screen right quick, and you can continue talking about it. Here's the manual on prospecting for uranium. It's out there on YouTube. The green dollar numbers indicate that it was sold at $9.60. That's pretty good shape, $14.95. So we're not talking about major dollar amounts, are we?
No, and these are relatively low value, except if you have an interest in the past, in that particular point in era. It really kind of holds an attraction. Certain points in time seem to stand out a little bit more than others, and to me, that's one of them. A kind of a turning point in world history, and that's kind of what adds to the attractiveness of it to me
as a collectible. Yes.
Yes.
Well, David, I think we probably need to begin wrapping this episode up. We're well past 15 minutes, but not only will we share current finds with you, we're going to share some stories, and we have some very interesting stories centered around prospecting and the types of finds that we've made. Some of them were very profitable. Some of them were just kind of interesting, right? And my wife, she just kind of rolls her eyes when I bring something new home, right? I'm not sure how your wife deals with all this.
Probably better not be talking about that.
Yeah, probably not. Well, I would like to ask our viewers if we've said anything that was of interest or entertaining to you, if you could like, share, and subscribe, and let other people know about our channel. This is the very first episode
Yes.
number 1. And we do appreciate you being with us. And I'm just going to tell them, take care and all the best. And over to you, Dave.
Ron, I want to thank you for hosting this, and also for giving us some really good examples of items that can be treasures that might not necessarily be high value in the aspect of monetary,
right?
Having a monetary value.
Right. They say if you collect for value, you're not really going to do well. I mean, that's all you're looking for. If you collect because it's of interest to you, you're going to have a lifelong lot of enjoyment, I guess the way to say that. But I think I'm done, David. Do you have anything else to share with our viewing audience?
No, I want to thank you for viewing, and catch our next episode.
Absolutely. Take care, everyone. We'll see you in the next episode.